want to thank you for coming today. My name is Councilwoman Joy Stiles. I am also mayoral candidate. I'm here today to discuss the state of arts and also affordability here in Nashville. As we all know, Nashville is globally known as Music City, and we have to thank the Jubilee Singers of Fisk for that moniker. And we lead with our talent. We put our singers, our songwriters, our musicians, and all of our creatives on our tourism brochures and also our billboards. But do we truly value our creative community? I think not. All you have to do is look at this year's proposed budget from the mayor and see that the message from the mayor's office is clear. While Nashville loves to use the brand of art, it does not value the artists that make it. I'm concerned about the direction that arts in Nashville are headed, or rather not headed in. And I want to begin with the Office of Entertainment. This was an office that I proposed to the former mayor, Mayor John Cooper, and he made it a reality because we needed it. And I appreciate him so much for that. That office was designed to be the engine that brings film, music, and digital projects and orchestral projects, all of the plethora of creativity that is able to be brought to this city, so that our residents don't have to leave our city to work and leave their families behind. But as of last month, we were this close, finally, to having the first executive director of the office hired. In fact, 2 candidates were sent over from the Entertainment Commission, which I also sponsored the creation of last term. They were sent to the mayor for him to make a decision between the 2 and then make an announcement about their hiring. That was in February, and it's now May. At every turn, this administration has tried to thwart this office from moving forward. Surprise legislation to take it over, presented last year, which I had to fight, wasted the better part of last year. And when it finally seemed that we were moving forward, now we have this massive setback. The last interviews took place, and when the budget was proposed to us, this entire office has been gutted. It is disrespectful to the commissioners that have spent all of the passion and the countless hours that they have given to forming the commission, getting it off its feet, and creating the job position and asking for this position to be hired. No appreciation for our volunteers. By removing the funding for this office from the budget, the mayor isn't just cutting a line item. He's cutting a cord that will impact thousands of local creatives. He's telling our musicians, our filmmakers, our singers, our songwriters, our production crews, and filmmakers that Nashville is not a place where they can live and work over the duration of their careers. And while we lose jobs, we also see the loss of housing. We see that millions were poured into a unified housing strategy, but where's the specific investment for the creative class? As we stand right now, there are 65 units available in the Ryman Lofts. 65. Do you know how many artists come to this city every single day to pursue their dream in some way, shape, or form? Be it music, be it film, being textiles. We stand here in the Creative Hub, right? Kreate Hub, a place for artists to be able to come and express themselves and create art that the public gets to enjoy. We make money off the backs of creatives, yet we tell them, you're unimportant, while we gut programs to then offer our communities a pittance in return. Artists have unique needs: live workspaces, affordable studio access, protections against displacement in the neighborhoods that they make cool. Without dedicated creative housing, we aren't Music City, we're just a city that's about to be a city that used to have music. And in case anyone is wondering, there is no one celebrating saving $72 a year on groceries. Just ask any of the artists standing here with me today, or anyone else you see walking around the city. It is just insulting to gut city programs with such a negligible return. because it sounds good on paper. The assault on art continues within our Metro Arts Department. To be frank, I am 5 years in on hearing about drama and dysfunction at Metro Arts. I weary of it. It is May 2026, and we are still functioning under a revolving door of interim directors. 2, since the former executive director was pushed out by this city, by this administration. You cannot have vision for a department, or really for a city for that matter, without leaders. Leaders push vision, and the vision has to make sense. There have been nothing but excuses provided as to why the hiring of this new executive director is not a priority. It does not make sense. Our sister cities have budgets 5 times our size, and they see the return on that investment, while we make our artists fight for crumbs from the table. But investment can only be shepherded by a permanent executive director, not a temp. You will hear more about the issues within Metro Arts and the current processes from the artists that are standing behind me today. Because of the vacuum that exists currently at Metro Arts, the grant process remains still fundamentally unfair, with small gains that are presented to us as a council body as big wins. But having sat here for the 5 years that I did mention, I can tell you those are not big wins, and I have shared that repeatedly with current leadership and with the commission, and still no change. It is as if they believe that they exist in and of themselves to make their own decisions. However, that is not the case, as they must bring legislation to the body that has to pass by council body that we've read, had a chance to review, making sure the grant criteria make sense for us so that we don't end up in the debacle we were in 2023. I can tell you right now, I won't be voting for that resolution because it has not been well thought out, it hasn't been presented properly, and it is unfair to the artists that are asking for the grant money for us to sloppily approve something that has not been vetted. I will not be a part of that. I will be encouraging my colleagues to do the same. If they would like to bring it back, and I'm happy to provide a short time frame, bring it back, reworked, so that we can vote on it and we can feel good about the work that they're doing, because currently I do not. And then the fiscal sponsorship model. 3 years ago, we had this conversation, or rather 2, right after we went through the drama of the former director being pushed out. Then we have to do conciliation agreements and decide that we're going to come up with established guidelines for how we do Thrive grants and how we're giving operating grants. And still we sit here in 2026 and it's still a mess. So the fiscal sponsorship model that was foisted upon individuals by Director Wally Dietz has been nothing but a burden. And I stated this when it happened. I said, this is not going to work out well. I have now heard from sponsors that say they can't do it again. It was too much work that they didn't anticipate having to take on, and they did it out of kindness, out of wanting to help artists that were struggling and wanted to be able to make art. But it has hindered their own work in order to be fiscal sponsors. And certainly, as you will hear from the artists, having to go through that process and have additional money taken away, that's not a win at all. So we are starving our grassroots creators with bureaucracy. And I can tell you, I deal with bureaucracy every single day. I hate it. There are so many enemies working within the system for the good of the people. And so often, our arts programs seem to be the direct beneficiaries of that treatment. Our Metro Arts Department is one of our smallest departments with one of our smallest budgets. And yet and still, how much effort and energy have we put into not allowing it to function? If we have proper leadership in this department, we can give it more money. But we can't give it more money while it's under poor leadership or temporary leadership. I look forward to the day that this executive director is hired, which, by the way, apparently, there's some movement there, but that's only because a new complaint has been filed. You'll hear about that momentarily. Today you'll hear from the local artists that are standing behind me, who are on the front lines of this crisis, along with leadership from Arts Equity. They're here to tell you what it actually looks like to try and create in a city that is actively not only pricing you out, but also underfunding the work that you're doing while you're here. I came here today to say that it's time to stop the assault on arts in Nashville. It's time to fund the Office of Entertainment, which is something I will be fighting for as we go into our budget review as a council, where we look through the budget and figure out where we would like to reallocate funds. This department is ready to go. This is a department that will make the city money. It makes no sense to cut it and impact people's ability to be able to work in this city. That's how much the mayor doesn't care about you as a creative. Please remember that in 27. It is time to start caring for our creatives. They are a blessing to this city. They draw people here. They make our lives better, whether it's murals, sculptures, paintings, music, film, mixed-use media. That is what makes our lives rich. And other cities have figured this out. It's time for us to figure that out as well. And so with that, I would like to pass this off to the artists.
Hello, and thank you everyone for being here and including me. Thanks, Joy. Before I start, I just want to voice some recognition and gratitude for the elders and ancestors that came before here in the state of Tennessee, for they've done a lot of work for many years and generations to enhance and increase Indigenous visibility in the state and in the city. They've done a lot of work. They're heroes to me, but they've often been met with resistance everywhere they turn. And nonetheless, they've persisted in everything that we have today. We have because of them. And I just want to take a moment to honor them before I speak to issues that we face in our community today. I am Joe Clemons. I'm a descendant of the Oto tribe, and I'm a local arts publisher. I used to run Native magazine here in town for many years. I'm now part of an organization called the New Athenian. I'm also on the leadership team at IndigeNash. Among other things, I've been part of this arts community for going on 15 or 20 years now, and I've seen a lot in my time as someone covering the arts. I speak today for myself, though, and not on behalf of anyone else. These are my perspectives as an Indigenous person living here. Indigenous communities have lived in Nashville for 14,000 years. By contrast, the city of Nashville is only 246 years old. Today, there are over 30,000 Native American residents in Tennessee, many of whom call Nashville home. Yet our representation here is almost non-existent. As we speak, the city is developing the East Bank, where the Trail of Tears once crossed, where we now see multi-million-dollar deals and long-term leases for established institutions like TPAC being made. Yet there is no such land use or programmatic management being offered for the living Indigenous people who contribute to this city every day. Across every riverfront development, Nashville is investing millions into its future, while leaving an undeniable gap where Indigenous stewardship should be. When we zoom a little closer, Metro Arts has to date funded over $61 million worth of public art. Yet the most visible reference to Indigenous visual aesthetics is Sticks, a piece created by non-Indigenous, non-local artists. I want to speak to Sticks for a moment since I have the time, I hope. I was at the beginning of my art career in the city when Sticks was installed. And I could tell you personally, when it was constructed, I was very excited about it. But upon learning that it wasn't an Indigenous person, it truly broke my heart and started within me a disillusionment with the city's treatment of Indigenous people and artists in general. All of this money left the city. It didn't benefit the people here. I'll continue. This is a system that uses our imagery without our voice. This isn't just a lack of vision, it's systemic racism. While major organizations receive majority funding and near-free land use, Indigenous artists get smaller checks and fiscal sponsorship mandates. This policy is a gatekeeping tool of distrust. It assumes that we are not responsible enough to manage our own funds. Land recognitions are meaningless if you continue to treat our living community with administrative paternalism. To put it plainly, in almost 250 years as a city, Nashville has failed the Indigenous community in many ways, but we currently stand at a once-in-a-generation moment to change that. Nashville cannot be a world-class city if its credibility is built on the active erasure of its foundation and its people. To the mayor, council, and Metro Arts, put land, funding, and stewardship into Indigenous hands and end the mandate for fiscal sponsorship for Thrive grants. Treat us with the same autonomy you award to billion-dollar developers and million-dollar institutions. Stop playing catch-up. Start building a city that truly honors its past and its living present. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Miriam Kraatz, and I'm a 2026 Metro Arts Thrive Grant recipient. The show is on June 5th, and both my residence and my dance studio are in Council District 2. I don't think the usefulness of art is up for debate today. So why do we need funding? I want to make a comparison. I grew up in Berlin, Germany, which is and has been famous for its art scenes. There is a scene for everything in Berlin. And growing up, I was not automatically bombarded with art education in school, but if you had further interest, it was relatively easy to access high quality education. I came from a low income family. We lived in something equivalent to Section 8 housing, but I was nevertheless able to access fairly comprehensive music lessons, about 3.5 hours a week for the price of one, after I qualified via testing. And in addition, each borough of the city had a music school, an evening school that included all kinds of arts education for adults and much more. Now, Nashville is Music City and famous for its country music and Broadway. This style of music recorded in Nashville is played all over the world, and I can tell you this is true because I travel a lot, so you hear it everywhere. Once you look past that, there's talent and passion, but many of the other art forms sometimes seem a little forgotten compared to the commercial funding available for those two items in Nashville. So my dance studio focuses on street style dances like break dance, and we actually have one of the largest youth breaking programs in the country. Very slowly built through personal sacrifices over the last 14 years, yet this year's Thrive Grant is the first public funding we have ever received. I'm sure many other subgenres of art are experiencing the same here in Nashville. And even if some people in the community have a really high passion for their art and give it their all, without funding, it is extremely difficult to level up as a community. I wish it weren't so, but money commands respect. More opportunities motivate. Something we see in the dance community all the time is that young, talented dancers try to leave the city for greener pastures as soon as they can, and this leads to a brain drain. This makes leveling up even more difficult. We do have a few nice venues in the city for art that is considered high quality, but often shows and exhibitions at these venues are from somewhere else. I would love to see Nashville fill these venues. The Thrive Grant is a good start for artists to bring their vision to life, and I'm very thankful for having received it this year, but I almost did not, due to the fiscal sponsorship requirement. My original sponsor had to back out the day of the deadline for submission, and I was extremely lucky to be saved by a different sponsor. If you want to level up the art in your city, I believe you need to show your city that it is important to you by investing in it and paying the educators of art. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Adonis. I am a local R&B artist here in Nashville, and I'm from District 4. Nashville is Music City. It's Music City. We build the culture, we build confidence, and we build authenticity through all of our arts. The only reason we're here is because we are able to be free. We are able to express ourselves in ways that the world will not allow us to express ourselves. Being here and growing up in Nashville has allowed me to see the culture expand in so many different ways, but it has also allowed me to see how different being an African American trying to pursue myself in this economy. If we want to be honest, everything that it comes down to, music and math are very universal. So if we play the numbers game, if I'm a local artist and I want to, let's say, put out a single, on a lower scale, just on a lower scale, you have to start from the pre-production. So you're going to your producers, you're paying them a fee. Then you have to pay to record that by hour. And then after that, you'll have to pay for a distribution price. Then you'll have to pay for cover art, any type of promotion. If you want visuals, you need a videographer as well. If you want any brand to succeed, you need advertisement funding. Even McDonald's, they are the biggest, largest fast food corporation, and they still invest in their advertisement. Because at the end of the day, you want a greater reach and for people to see you on a brighter scale. So we are asking you not to cut any type of funding, but to allow people to be free, especially in this economy where you look at just gas prices, just the grocery prices, rent prices are going up as well. It's very hard for us to make ends meet on just basic living needs. So to take those fundings away from art and a way for us to actually build the culture, because at the end of the day, when people come to Nashville, they want to see the art. That is what they come here for. You go on Broadway, it is a big, full of live music every step you take. So if you have any grace, any type of sincerity for what builds the culture of Nashville, you will not allow that to disappear over time. I speak for not only us as local artists, baby artists, but on a larger scale as well. We build Music City at the end of the day. Thank you.
Good morning, arts family. My name is Rossi Turner. On behalf of all my colleagues here, I have something to say. It has been a pleasure to have the opportunity to perform with Grammy Award winner Amy Grant when she did It's Not a Song. It was a pleasure to do the work with the Stella Awards and the Dove Awards. But most importantly, to be able to inspire a young man from Nashville who said, Rossi Turner, will you choreograph a piece for an audition at Belmont? So I did so. Moving fast forward, that young man from Nashville, Tennessee, that went to Whites Creek High School in the band, served as Aladdin for 3 years on Broadway until COVID set in, and is now a professor in Texas. So how did a man like me, that played football, basketball, and ran track, end up being a dancer? Because only in college did I go and see the Alvin Ailey 2 Dance Company. And that inspired me to do all the things that I do now. I'm one of the founders and the first vice president of the African Street Festival, and have brought the National Dance Company of Trinidad and Tobago here to Nashville. So what is Equity Arts Alliance talking about? We're saying that the little people who don't always find their names on the marquee need to have an opportunity to thrive. And we can thrive with the Thrive Grant, because we can pay people that allows them an opportunity to move away from work for a little while and study dance, to study theater, to do their visual arts, to play their instruments, and allow us to be the music city on all the levels that we know that we can be. So we're saying to you, people in Nashville, this city has earned 50% of the revenue of the whole state of Tennessee. And you're telling us, after you build $2.1 billion stadium and all these things that you want to do on the East Bank, that you can't find money for the grassroots artists to keep this thing going. I think I have some problems with that. And we want to hold you accountable. Be responsible as elected officials. Take care of the little people as well as taking care of the others. Nelson Mandela has said this: artists can go where politicians cannot. And we want you to clearly understand that we will dance and paint and do theater 1,000,000 times while the rest of the world decides it's going to fight. Because the children are watching, and we want the children to understand that humanity still exists. And as human beings, we can still look after each other. And the hearts of the arts becomes the heartbeat of that community. Do the right thing and sponsor, support, create a new criteria for Thrive. Get the mess out of the way so that we can do what we do. May the ancestors be pleased.
Hello, I'm Christine Hall, Executive Director of Arts Equity Nashville, and I want to thank Councilmember Stiles for inviting us here today, for our fellow artists for assembling, and for community organizer Lydia, Yousief, all your work ongoing. I have 2 statements to share from artists who were not able to attend. Before I go into these, I will take a moment to say that Arts Equity Nashville officially formed a few years ago to advocate for equitable arts funding and distribution in Nashville. Since Metro Arts' inception, we know the lion's share of funding has gone to the largest organizations, and artists have been organizing for quite some time to get that more equitably distributed and to right-size the funding in the arts. We filed a Title VI complaint with MHRC that was ultimately successful and awarded over $2 million in funding direct to local artists. The benefits throughout the community were far-reaching and pronounced. Since then, we've had to file another Title VI complaint with MHRC, but this one did not get the reception the last one did. It was not properly investigated. They went ahead and went straight to claiming there was no probable cause. However, you can see, not just by the artists who are gathered here today, but the ones who co-signed on our complaint, 88 together with Lydia and myself, that many artists are still facing discrimination, and far more than that have never been served by Metro Arts. This first statement I'm going to read is from Nicole Minyard, founder and executive director of Daybreak Arts, which creates artistic and economic opportunities for people experiencing homelessness and housing insecurity by providing them access to the creative resources needed to achieve personal fulfillment and success. I read this to you as a formerly unhoused artist. Today I'm speaking as a general operating grantee in solidarity with artists in this community. Over the last decade, our nonprofit has benefited from Metro Arts funding, so I know firsthand how important that support can be. But instead of solidarity, I've watched many nonprofits align themselves with art monopolies that hoard public funding and consolidate power. These monopolies don't just control resources. They control who gets visibility, who gets opportunities, and who feels safe enough to speak. They elevate a few smaller organizations and artists, not as a commitment to equity, but as a strategy to maintain silence when it matters most. We're often told, especially by Metro Arts staff, we just need to get everyone in the same room. But let's be honest, that room is not equal. There are structural barriers that can make it dangerous for people to speak freely. Artists know that honesty can cost them funding, partnerships, and their future. So many self-censor. And then this Arts Commission has the audacity to turn around and claim it has gathered community feedback and that everything is working. For years, I have watched, emailed, and spoken out as artists in this community have become more marginalized and more disenfranchised because of this Arts Commission decisions. I've seen artists awarded funding who never received it because they couldn't secure fiscal sponsors. Many walked away humiliated and vowed to never apply for Metro Arts funding under this leadership again. Metro Arts actions have effectively coerced people out of participation. I've seen artists who did secure fiscal sponsors face new barriers this year. Fiscal sponsors that deprioritized their projects, delayed payments, withheld information, and left artists without recourse. Our community brought all of these concerns to the Arts Commission before fiscal sponsorship was imposed, and yet those warnings were always ignored. Metro Arts has established no meaningful training or regulation of fiscal sponsors and no consequences when they fail to uphold their agreements. They rolled out a process that the community did not want without the diligence to ensure it would work, leaving artists to absorb the harm while they figure it out. And the harm is not hypothetical. It is happening now in our community. Meanwhile, Metro Arts continues to present a public narrative that everything is going smoothly, that the community is satisfied, but many grantees and excluded artists are either too exhausted or too afraid to speak because they've seen how this Arts Commission can retaliate and smear people. This Arts Commission has sidelined local muralists, artists in our communities, while giving tens of thousands of public dollars directly to out-of-state artists for public art projects where there is limited to no community engagement. They have also lowered Thrive Artists funding, further restricting opportunity for the very artists these programs are supposed to support. There's also a lack of clear standards, separating dedicated arts organizations from nonprofits whose primary mission is elsewhere but include arts programming. As a result, organizations funded for housing or social services can still compete for arts operating support without a defined arts budget, leveraging broader resources to their advantage. This puts smaller, dedicated arts groups at a disadvantage and diverts limited funding away from those it's meant to support. I raised these concerns last year, but both the interim executive director and the Arts Commission ignored them. So instead, this past year, while more funding was directed toward both non-arts focused nonprofits and well-resourced organizations with multi-million-dollar budgets, I watched smaller, fully focused arts nonprofits in my own community receive no Metro Arts funding this year. In addition to the arts nonprofits impacted by these bad policies, 73 Thrive applicants who scored above 70%, many outperforming larger and non-arts organizations that were funded, received no funding at all. Let that sink in. 73 artists who had scores higher than many art monopolies received nothing, while organizations with multiple established revenue streams and wealthy board members were awarded a disproportionate amount of arts funding once again. Right now, this Arts Commission has created a system with increased barriers for artists and more ways to extract funding for institutions. This moves in direct contradiction to the goals Metro Arts originally set out to achieve before Metro Legal, Metro Finance, and members of this Arts Commission overrode the democratic process, exposing Metro Nashville to increased legal risk. The Arts Commission has also refused to engage the community to find viable solutions to pay artists directly, something that worked for over a decade without issue. Instead, they've doubled down on a system that shifts power and resources away from artists and into the hands of wealthy institutions. I'm going to call this what it is. Retaliation. Retaliation against artists who demanded more equitable funding. Retaliation that protects well-resourced organizations. I'll say it again as a nonprofit who became a fiscal sponsor this year. Mandatory fiscal sponsorship is not a neutral policy. It is a discriminatory barrier, and it's a deliberate policy choice this Arts Commission has imposed, undermining the democratic process. But many in our community are not going to accept this in silence. We are documenting these harms, and we will continue to demand a system that is transparent, equitable, and accountable to the people it claims to serve. This next and final artist statement that I will read is from Marcellus Hammond. The Thrive Grant was supposed to be a program that put artists first, giving them a chance to control their own narrative and foster community that thrives both socially and economically. Over the past few years, the Commission seems to be suffering from main character syndrome, refusing to listen to the community's concerns and ideas. Forcing fiscal sponsorship after many people documented they were against it felt like dictatorship. Artists facing housing and food crisis while being forced to fight for scraps that also includes convoluted processes, multiple delays, and unclear feedback from the Commission all add to the humiliation Nashville artists are expected to endure over and over. All in the name of art, fairness, and trust in the system? This is diabolical. I would think that in a time where this country is on a dark path, a community like Nashville would be a strong example of what true leadership looks like, leading the way on how other cities can transform these toxic systems into practices that embrace rather than ostracize, and be democratic rather than dictate. Metro Council has a chance to be on the right side of history, and I'm curious to see if you'll be a torchbearer and do what's right, or an entity that continues to cut funding from artists while transferring those funds to larger institutions, which seems to be the current model. This is your chance to do better, be better, and dissolve this us against them wall that blocks us from growth. Thank you, and good luck. I'm just going to add one more thing. If you go to artsequitynashville.org or Arts Equity Nashville on YouTube, we have a video statement from Erica Nash of Mercademy. Thank you.
Good morning, my name is Lydia Yousief. I'm representing Arts Equity Nashville here today with Christine Hall, our very strong leader at Arts Equity Nashville, and I want to thank all the artists for their bravery and for coming forward with their experiences and their stories. That's not easy to come up and speak to the government about issues that we're having, so I really want to commend their bravery because that is the first step to acknowledging the harm and bringing about change, is when people are not self-censoring and imagining that being quiet and being compliant will get us anywhere in this society. So I really commend your bravery today. I want to bring forth the solutions to a democratic process. Freddie O'Connell, our current mayor, is the one who picked this interim director to lead this office in January of 2025, under the guise that it will bring about equity and community engagement and prosperity to the office, but instead, in the past 2 years, we have found the opposite, as you have heard from the artists. We have seen the abolishment of CARE, the Committee on Anti-Racism and Equity, from Metro Arts, which has been obviously disastrous to the grants criteria that has come out. We've seen the defunding of artists in fiscal year 2026, 73 artists who qualified for community projects who were denied because they wanted to move that money up to the top. We have seen through our FOIA requests that there is also internal disorder. There have been 2 formal HR complaints and 1 informal complaint against Ashley Batchelder as the interim director. All 3 are from people of color in the office. All 3 allege racism. 1 in particular is on discriminatory hiring practices, in which Batchelder in the complaint does not hire a person of color and circumnavigates Metro's process of hiring. This is really disconcerting for the community that we are seeing this on the ground in the community and then also within this department in Metro where there isn't equitable and anti-discriminatory hiring practices at a time when artists are speaking out. So we want to uplift that for the staff and for the community as well. Our demands are very simple. Actually, it's always interesting how simple the requests are coming in from the community. And it's, you know, the bare minimum that we are asking for is that Ashley Batchelder was meant to be an interim director placed there by the current mayor. She has not been able to steer that department for the past 2 years. She has not listened to the community. She has wreaked havoc with the staff. It is time for us to open up the executive director search for Metro Arts and to start that 3-month process with the commission. That is a very important next step that needs to happen as soon as possible. The other solution that we are bringing through is that the defunder, who is in the midst of her 3rd term, Campbell West, who is leading the commission, is also ill-equipped to lead that commission. She also needs to be removed. She is the last defunder on that commission. So she is the last of the commissioners who voted to reverse and to defund artists back in 2023, and she has continued that march of madness since then. She is ill-equipped, and she uses the term institutional memory. I don't fully understand why someone who has the memory of segregation and defunding artists would be allowed to lead. And I think the community has spoken up very broadly about that. The last thing is that Arts Equity Nashville, which is completely volunteer run, has created a proposal for a grants criteria. And we have submitted it to the council as an alternative to what Batchelder and whatever formulation she's coming up with her grants criteria, Metro Legal and Metro Finance, not the community. We have presented that as a proposal and as an alternative. And so we ask with the community that be accepted and that we bring forth a new age, a new age, that's gonna be a fun little, there's someone right there. Bring a new age for the artists here, where we can fully fund the arts and the artists and see community wherever the arts in all of our spaces. In this past cycle, I'm Egyptian, 0 Egyptian artists were funded in fiscal year 2026 through this department, even though Egypt, after Mexico, has the 2nd most foreign-born residents in Davidson County. So we are missing out indigenous voices, we are missing out a lot of our Black community, Latino community members, and our Arab community members, and Kurdish community members who are not being given their fair share in their taxes. So on behalf of all our community members, working class, and people of color in this city who deserve arts, who deserve to see it on every corner, who want to carry those traditions and that heritage, we advocate for this proposal and we advocate for a new transition, systemic transition in this department. Thank you.
I want to thank everyone that has come out here today to share their experiences in the recent years and also the course of several years. This is a repetitive pattern. It is the belief that if we push one person out who pushes against status quo, we can insert some gatekeeping individuals in place, and then that will keep things nice and quiet the way that things had previously been. I think it's clear that you can hear from these artists and organizations that change is needed, and not lip service, but the actual work. I think what I've observed over the course of the 5 years as I've interacted with Metro Arts is that we do have many new commissioners that are actually committed to the work, that would like to move things forward, and then I watch them get caught in conversational traps of how things shouldn't move forward because there's some reason how the past has really worked out. As I stated earlier today, it is my intention, the legislation that was presented to us that they would like to pass tomorrow so they can open grants on Friday, Where does that give us enough time to review, ask questions for them to move forward effectively? I can't support that. It is clear arts are under attack. Whether it is Metro Arts, whether it is the Office of Entertainment, this is all under the purview of the administration of Freddie O'Connell. This is a man who promised on 3 separate occasions while running in 2023 that he would give 1% of the budget to arts, to Metro Arts specifically. No efforts have ever been made to figure out how to make this work for the community artists and for our organizations. I have said it in the past, I will say it again today. Our individual artists and our organizations make up the art ecosystem. It is both. It is not either or. It is both and. Instead of making artists fight against each other, we need to figure out how everyone can work together because they are all being supported. And being supported equitably. That is not a bad word. Equity is not a bad word. It is about fairness. And I believe that we can do better. And I believe that we've also intentionally not done better. So it is my hope that in this budget cycle, it is my hope for next budget cycle, that we are looking how things can get better. Make sure that we're funding the entertainment office, making sure that Metro Arts grants criteria make sense. Is any system going to be perfect? No. But compromise means that everybody gets a little bit of something. No one gets more than anyone else. We are missing compromise. We're missing that middle. I don't think a 50-50 split is a heavy lift. Split the money in half. Figure out what your criteria is. Be fair about it. Because the minute that happens, we as council members are receiving the complaints. The commission may not be getting the complaints, but we are. From artists, from organizations. People are coming to the commission meetings and saying, how is it possible that I didn't get any funding? With all of the work that we do. Established organizations too. It's a problem. But I have faith and I have hope that in the future, underneath proper leadership that actually has a background in arts, this department can thrive. All puns intended. I think that we will see a brighter day then. And I think then you will see the investment that people are asking for because the leadership can be trusted. I sincerely hope that this is the last time that we have to have another conversation publicly to put people to task about this department and how things are being handled. I have read the complaint. It is 45 pages long. This is not 1 or 2 paragraphs. It is 45 pages. You don't get 45 pages for nothing. And there are things in that report that I find extremely concerning. Commissioners participating in HR activities, that is not their purview, and stating that that's not their purview while they engage in HR activities. We cannot do that. We cannot speak out of both sides of our mouth. So if we appointed you and it's not working out, perhaps we need to remove you. That's always been my belief, and that's certainly what I have done in the past. I think it is important that we hold leaders accountable. That is everyone. Anyone sitting in a position of leadership has to be accountable for the responsibilities that they hold. Full stop. If you're supposed to be holding meetings for the community, hold meetings for the community. If they're asking you when they submit information, did you receive it, and you don't respond, that's a problem too. And I've heard about that a lot. So again, I'm grateful. Thank you, Lydia. Thank you for assembling all of these artists. Thank you, artists, for being here. Christine, for being here. Reading the statements for those that cannot be here. I don't want people to get weary in well-doing. Your art matters. Please do not give up. There are still those of us that are inside the house taking the calls that are coming from inside the house. And we will continue to take those calls. Please reach out whenever you need to. I am reading, listening, and speaking at all times. and they tried to stifle me, and it didn't work. And I'm still here, and I'm not going anywhere. I will continue this fight because we are Music City. We are Creative City. And we need to pour into the people that make us the place that everyone around the country is talking about flying to spend a weekend or a week or figure out how they move here. We cannot take that away. Artists are what make this city great. When they come, they're not touring Centennial Hospital because healthcare is our number one industry, but entertainment is number two. They're coming to go to Broadway, the National Museum of African American Music, the Country Music Hall of Fame. They're coming here to stop by because they heard that art's being here at Kreate Hub. So support art. Be sure, write the mayor. Let him know you are not happy that he's gutted an entire office that's here to help you be able to stay here and work.